Part of the Australian motor scene. In 1956, he went to live in England as a Cooper Works driver, and in 1959, he returned to race in Australia. Only 15 years ago, this race at Orange clearly underlines the enormous gap which existed between the sport in Australia and international motor racing overseas.
Brabham leads Ted Gray around Brandy Corner, followed by Alex Mildren, number 4. There's a close race for 4th place between Len Lukey, number 5, and Arnold Glass, number 2. Werner Grieve leads Doug Whiteford, and Curly Bryden completes the leading group. This is a race over 100 miles, and the slower cars are beginning to fall behind. Here the tail-enders are passing the pit area, while Jack Brabham takes the Cooper Climax around Brandy's in a perfect line. He encounters a new hazard on Total Straight when billowing smoke from a nearby fire is blown across the track. This doesn't affect Brabham as he steadily increases his lead. It's starting to rain, and Doug Whiteford in 2nd place is a near casualty as he rounds Brandy's corner. Arnold Glass, number 2, is in 3rd place, just ahead of Len Lukey, number 5. Brabham is content to maintain his lead over Doug Whiteford with half the race over. The pace has slowed down, and Brabham has dropped his maximum speed by 20 miles per hour when he travels down the mile-long straight. Doug Whiteford makes a desperate effort in the final laps, but Brabham is almost a minute ahead. He takes windsock and goes on down the straight to meet the checkered flag.
For Jack Brabham, 1959 was an outstanding year. The international motor racing season starts with the Monaco Grand Prix. In those days, Sterling Moss enjoyed a film star reputation, and he was the pre-race favourite. But Jack Brabham, the quiet Australian, who had never won an international Grand Prix, was destined to surprise the experts with his consistent performance. The course through the narrow, twisting streets of the Principality involves more than 2,000 gear changes, and it's a stiff test for both the driver and the car. Sterling Moss fails to complete the course, and Jack Brabham in the Cooper Climax records his first win in an international Grand Prix. The presentation by Princess Grace and Prince Rainier. By December, Jack Brabham is the leader in the World Drivers' Championship, and the United States Grand Prix at Sebring is the final race of the series. Only one other driver, Sterling Moss, has a chance of beating Brabham for the championship if he can win this race. In the early stages, it's Moss first, Brabham second. The Sebring course takes its toll of some of the lesser drivers, but the major interest is in the 2 leading cars. In the middle stages, Sterling Moss pulls out with mechanical trouble, and Jack Brabham, number 8, has only to complete the course to win the World Championship. Bruce McLaren, number 9, has moved into 2nd place, and the race is dominated by the Cooper Works team. Brabham and McLaren speed towards the finish. It appears to be all over, but there's unexpected drama before the end. In the last lap, less than half a mile to go, Brabham runs out of petrol, and Bruce McLaren at 22 is the youngest driver ever to win an international Grand Prix. In an atmosphere of great excitement, Jack Brabham pushes his car across the line in 4th place to become the first Australian ever to win the World Championship.
Coming up the hill through the S's, it's Hill, Clark, Ginther, Stewart, and Bandini. Down the front straight to the far turn, Stewart gets by Ginther to take 3rd place, 6 lengths behind Hill and Clark. In the back straight, the 18 Formula One racers scramble to improve their first lap position. At the end of lap 1, the leaders are Hill and Clark. Stewart's BRM number 4 is in third, and Bandini's Ferrari, Spence's Lotus, and Brabham and Gurney are grouped a few lengths behind the race leaders. Intermittent showers, and the lap times get slower for Hill, as well as for the group of challengers. Right together in second, third, and fourth are Gurney in Brabham number 8, Bandini's Ferrari, and Brabham's number 7. Graham Hill is still well in the lead, but a new threat is in the making. After teammate Gurney's unsuccessful challenge, Jack Brabham has decided to make his move. He closes on the number 8 car, and in the front straight overtakes Gurney and has the second place as they go into the far turn. But the Brabham car is rapidly closing the gap, and it seems certain that Hill will be caught on this lap or the next one. Now Brabham is right on the BRM stack. And in the pit straight, Brabham makes his move to take over the lead. But Brabham pushes it too hard in the hairpin, goes off the track, and Hill regains the lead with Gurney right behind him. After his brief moment of glory, less than a full lap as race leader, Brabham now must settle for a distant third place. There's no chance for Gurney now, and Hill takes the checkered flag 12 seconds ahead of his challenger.
Jack Brabham is now the world's largest manufacturer of racing cars, as well as the only driver manufacturer in the world today. He sells between 80 and 100 racing cars a year. He sells them because they're relatively simple, they handle well, and they have a reputation for winning. Some of the world's foremost drivers are amongst his customers. And in one recent European race, 19 cars of the 29 starters were Brabham's. Jack Brabham operates from England because he says Europe is the centre and the hub of Grand Prix racing. But the brains behind his racing cars, the designers, the equipment, and most of the 30 racing mechanics are Australians. The engines are built in Melbourne by Repco and flown to England. There, when the cars are assembled, they're tested on the circuit. Brabham makes the trip to the circuit in his own plane, which he uses to fly around Europe. He's equally confident in the air or on the road. Brabham's association with Repco began in 1957 when the Australian company supplied universal joints and drive shafts for the Cooper he was then driving. After that, Brabham made increasing use of Australian components in his cars. And in 1964, he suggested that it should not be beyond Repco to build a complete racing engine. The company agreed to take up the challenge as a research project. By now, the first Repco Brabham engine, the E1, was showing up well in the testing laboratory. At more than 8,000 revolutions a minute, it hardly gave a tremor. It was light enough to go into Brabham's existing cars and could easily be converted from 2.5 to 3 litres. 2.5 years after the project started, Repco, rather to its astonishment, finds that it's the world's leading manufacturer of Grand Prix racing engines. Their success with a Formula One engine, the most sophisticated production in the motor industry, has put Australian technology on the front pages of the world. Brabham attributes this success to having the right engine in the right car at the right time. Next year, the formula changes, and this engine, in its present form, will not be able to compete against the high-powered products of Ferrari and BRM.
And Jack Brabham makes a very good start. Graham Hill makes a bad one. And And it's Jack Brabham on the inside as they go into paddock bend, just holding off the opposition. And Dan Gurney slipping into second place ahead of Denny Hulme. And Graham Hill made a bad start and fell right back. But here's Jack Brabham in the lead now. Dan Gurney right in his tail, Denny Hulme on his tail. Here's the lead which Jack Brabham has as they come into Hawthorne's Bend. And on the inside going through past Dan Gurney was Jochen Rindt up into second place. It's Jack Brabham ahead of Jochen Rindt and Dan Gurney. And then Jim Clark very close to Denny Hulme, but Jack Brabham's pulling well out through the dip of Dingle Dell, with Jochen Rindt, who went so very fast at Spa in the wet, moved up into second place on the Cooper Maserati. As there he is, that's Jochen Rindt on the Cooper Maserati in second place and trying very hard to cash in as well as he can. Here's Jack Brabham and a close-up of the 3-litre V8 Repco engine based on a Buick developed in Australia, which is sending him on to what looks like his second Grand Épreuve victory on the trot. He currently leads the World Championship with a score of 12 points, and of course if he can pull this one off, this will put him into a very handsome lead over his closest pursuers. There's Denny Hulme on the second of the Brabhams, and here's the group coming through Druids, and Jack virtually coming up to lap third man in the race, but he won't make a great drama about that, although he has done so. He's steamed past Graham Hill on the bottom straight to lap him as he goes round on his last lap now. So it looks as if the two Brabhams of Jack Brabham and Denny Hulme are going to lap the rest of the field just to add an extra laurel to this tremendous victory of theirs. If ever a driver created the car for himself, Jack Brabham has done just that. Coming down now towards the checkered flag, the man who won the World Championship in 1959 and 60 jumps into the lead of the World Championship 1966 with a score of 21 points over his nearest rival's 10. The result then of the RAC Grand Prix 1966, a tremendous victory for the 3-litre Repco Brabhams of Jack Brabham and Denny Hulme, third Graham Hill BRM, fourth Jim Clark Lotus, and fifth Jochen Rindt Cooper Maserati. A tremendous day at Brands Hatch.